flatten that out now, so it's a lot flatter. And I'm going to put just a bit of tape over the top to stop it moving about as well. So on the other side you can see the elastics through, and it looks quite nicely neat finished off with the eyelet. So I'm going to go ahead now and we're going to get the cover on, but I'm going to move my board out the way so I've got a nice flat surface to work on. So I'm going to start with the ends. Careful not to cut your string, and then straight away what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in slightly on these ends. Do one end first and show you. So it comes in like that. Just get that little burnish down there, and then I'm going to add a piece of the double-sided tape on that end there, and then I'm going to put wet glue on the rest of it. I'm just going to burnish that down to get a good stick, and then we can take that off, and a bit of wet glue on the top. Just using the Cal-Al here, but you can use your glue of choice, and then press that over and get that as flat as you can. Now obviously you've got this piece intruding, but try and go as flat as you can. We're going to be putting the top cover over as well, so it will help, but obviously you want to get a nice stick on that. And in fact, to help things along, I'm going to put a piece of tape just there as well. I'm going to split round and do exactly the same on the other side. This is a bit of a cheats way, I call it, of doing mitered corners. I know mitered corners again is something that some of you aren't keen on. They get a bit scared by it, and they never quite work right. So this is a bit of a cheats way of doing mitered corners. So wet glue again, push it down, burnish that edge, and then these corners I'm just literally going to cut straight across. Sorry, I got out of camera shot there, so I'm just going to go straight across there. So it's not a full mitre, okay? And then when you've got your top piece on anyway, it will look like a full mitre, so it's a bit in disguise, if you like. So we're going to do the same now with this side. So I'm just going to get this bending nicely now. It's not very easy with the glitter cardstock, but we'll do the best we can. And then I'm going to put a piece of tape all the way along, smooth that all down. Take that top covering off. And then some wet glue on this top bit up here. And then press that all over. Just pressing as hard as I can. Obviously if I'd had normal paper you'd be fine, but with this glittering on, it's glittered now and again and not all the way across, so it's not as easy to do, but we'll do our best anyway. And then we flip round and do the same again. You know, it's nice when you get paper collections like this and you've got some different papers in the collection. I mean, I wouldn't use these glitter papers to do the folded pages because it just wouldn't work. number one because it's single-sided, but also with the glitter to do those folds I think would be a bit ambitious, and that's why it's quite nice to use them on a cover of a book, because then you don't have to add too much of the way of front embellishments. Just going to trim that little nick off there, put some wet glue up the top. Go from the centre and start pushing that down. That now just needs time to settle and dry. It will bend nicely, but I'm not going to bend it at this stage because it's not dry. And what you can do, if you find in places that it's not quite sticking, you can go ahead with some of your clips just to hold things in place while they're drying off. Okay, so I'm going to set that to the side, so that's got time to dry. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do the hinge. So we'll put that somewhere flat to dry, move it over there out the way, and bring back our scoreboard, ready for the hinge. And I've cut 3 pieces of cardstock. 2 are identical, these are going to be our inside hideaway covers, and this slimmer one, which is measuring 4 inches, is going to be our hinge. That's 4 inches in width, and then obviously it's a 12-inch length, but I'm not going to need 12 inches, but we'll trim some off as we go along. So I'm going to make a start. I'm going to, I think, come in about 2.5 inches on this book, so get the right tool might help. So first score lines at 2.5. Now people do worry when they're making the hidden hinge system. This is the Kathy Ortas hidden hinge system, about getting it in the right place, but we'll work together and then you'll be okay. So I started at 2.5, and then I'm having a space, and then I'm going to probably, we'll come in at 3. I'll start at 3. And then I'm going to come in at 1/2 inch for the actual hinges themselves, and I'm going to leave a 1/4 inch space. So I should have perhaps left out a 1/4 inch, but we'll run with that 1/2 inch that end. We need 4 hinges, so we've got hinge, hinge, which are 1/2 inch. Then I'm going 1/4 inch for space, and then we go 1/2 inch hinge, 1/2 inch hinge, 1/4 inch space, 1/2 inch hinge, 1/2 inch hinge, 1/4 inch space, 1/2 inch hinge. Is that 1/2 inch? No, wrong one, that one. 1/2 inch hinge, 1/2 inch hinge, 1/4 inch space. I'm just going to flip it over quickly just to make sure I've got enough lines, and I don't think I have. So this is how I do it. I do a space, hinge, hinge, space, hinge, hinge, space, hinge, hinge, space, hinge, hinge, space. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 hinges and a space. I could have probably done with a 1/2 there, but that's absolutely fine. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim this last little bit off so they're roughly equal, not being too precious about it, because it's going to be hidden away. And then I'm going to come in with my double-sided 1/2 inch tape, and then what I do is I put tape on the first hinge mark of each line. And it's not quite as easy to pick up with this colour. If I'm doing a craft one, you can see the tape a bit better. Because I'm working in the night now with the night light, it's not as good, but we'll see what that comes out like. So let's burnish those down, and then we'll start putting this together. And this is how I do it. I take the first one off, tuck any ends in where I've just torn it, and I fold that first one all the way over, burnish down, burnish back. That's the first hinge, and the next one. So as you can see, I'm doing this in real time with you, working along with you. You can pause the video at any time and re-watch it and work with me. It's absolutely fine. But by me doing it in real time, you can see how long it's going to take to do. But please don't be afraid of Kathy Orta's Hidden Hinge, because it's a great design, and there's a lot of great crafters out there on the internet, and that's why it's all good that we share our ideas with you. Bring this back again. So that now is our hinge made. I'm just folding them back the other way so we get some movement in our book. So I've done this out the cream card because the tags to go in these pages I've made out the same cream, and the inside as well is going to be out the same cream. So everything then is all matching, so we get that continuity all the way through the book. Just tidy these bits out of the way, and then we get the tape measure, and I'm just going to measure my hinge, and this is coming in at 3/4 of an inch by, that's just under 4 inches. So it's 3/4 of an inch, and our hinge on our book, if I remember correctly, was 2. Let me just measure this. No, it wasn't quite 2, it was 1 7/8. So let's score again. So that's 1 7/8. So that's 4, 5, 6, 7/8. Might take it to the 2. Let me just have a quick look at the measurements, because we've got these gaps each side, remember. I think we're going to take it to 2. Make things nice and neat and easily rounded off. So I'm going to score at 2 inches. Okay, this can be cut away, do not worry. And we're going to do the same on this one. So that's a 2-inch mark. Now if I want to cut that rest off, just as a rough guide, I'm looking at 5 3/4. I'm going to move my clamps now because this here is not sticking particularly well. Just so I get a nice stick. You need to allow time for these things to dry, especially when you're using wet glue. Got it under a bit of a weight here as well. So I've gone 2, and I'm going to go 5 3/4. That's 7 3/4. And then I'm trim off this axis we don't want. I'll do that just with a pair of scissors for quickness. Bring in our mat. My mat is looking really messy at the moment. Let's burnish that score. Now we're going to make a Hideaway Hinge system for this book, just to show you something a bit different again. So we've got a 4-inch height, or just under a 4-inch height, and this is 4.5. So I'm going to do some light scoring. What I'm going to do is use one as my template, and the second one will go over the top, so you won't see the score marks. So this is coming in at 4.5, and we're just under 4. So if we go 1/4 inch each end, so light score. Okay, that's the height done. And then on the width, we've got 2 inches, and our hinge actually measured, which is the bits that stand up, is the bits that I'm interested, not the bits that are laying down either side. So it's just under 3/4 of an inch, well, just over 3/4 of an inch. So if I do 3/4 of an inch, that allows 1 1/4. So I can do 6/8 on one side. Is that right? So if I did 6/8 in there and came in 6/8 there, is that right? No, I don't think that is. Let me just double check. Oh yes, that is. Yes. So I'm going to do a faint line, 6/8 of an inch in. No, it's not 6/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8. 5/8 of an inch in. Sorry people, 5/8. And then I'm going to come in here 5/8 as well. So I've just lightly scored that round. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut that aperture out from the middle. So I'm going to bring in my board again. I'm going to use a craft knife for this. Now I'm going to score, or I'm going to cut, I should say, sorry. I'm going to cut to just outside the long lines, because it's 3/4 of an inch, but it will be a really snug fit. So I'm just going to go down that line there, and I'm going to twist it so I can see what I'm doing, and I'm going to do exactly the same again. It might not be very easy for you to see in this light, but you'll see what I'm doing. And then these ones I'm going to this is where sometimes you're best to cut less, because you can always trim a bit more off, but you can never just go and stick another piece on. So this is why I call the first one my template, and the second one we draw around and stick down. So this then tucks over there to hide the hinge. Okay, now I've left a bit too much of a gap top and bottom. I'm not quite happy with that. It's not as snug as I was like. So I'll show you how to get round that. Rather than throw this piece of card away and start again, I'm going to show you how we're going to get round that. So what we're going to do is, this is going to be the top one that's going to go on the top. So I'm going to flip this over now. I'm going to draw this aperture. I'm going to get my pencil, and I'm just going to draw the aperture. Now there was a bit of gapping top and bottom, so what I'm going to do is just draw an extra line, and on the top one we'll cut on those lines. So if we cut those first, doesn't matter so much about the bottom one, as long as the top one that actually shows looks nice and neat. Saves throwing it away. You could throw it away and start again, and I have done that when I was coming up with all this idea. But actually, as long as you haven't cut them both the same, this is the way round it. So, and I'm not one for wasting paper and cards, so that's why there are ways round these things. As they say in crafting, there's no right or wrong, there's just happy mistakes. So, taking that aperture window out of there. So then if I pop this on top, now see that's snugger, that's a lot tighter fit, so I need to take just a little bit more off there. So it just shows you that is probably only the tiniest amount that needs to come off. So I've just literally taken off what I call a hair's breadth, taken that away. Let's see if this fits on the top now. That's a lot better. So it's really nice and tight. That's what we want. So then time the pages are on, you're getting that continuous look along there. So we're going to go ahead and glue this now. So this is going to be my top one. So it doesn't matter that it's too tight. We're going to stick this one down first. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the sides, and I'm just going to use some Cal-Al for this. In fact, I'll do it on the back of here. I'm just needing glue on the sides of these. This is the tacky glue from Cal-Al that I'm using. You could use the all-purpose. The tacky glue goes off a lot quicker, so that's why I find it works for this. So I'm just lining it up level. I put glue at the top and I didn't really need to, so just push that down. That's finding its place. That's it. Right, I'll just get a wipe and just wipe my mat up there. Good old baby wipes. And then we can go ahead and stick this top one on. This time I'm going to put glue all the way around. Slide that over the top. Now obviously using a wet glue, this is going to need time to really dry before we start manipulating and bending it. As you know, the Cal-Al will help to strengthen things up, which is great. And you can see that looks now a lot more snug. Okay, you've got the gap there top and bottom. Don't worry about that at this stage. When we attach it inside the book, this is where we're going to put our tape. But as you can see by looking already, you've got a nice continuous clean line. So we're just going to flip over now and glue these back bits, and I'm going to go in just with some normal Cal-Al for that. So we'll just get some glue on these back pieces. By having the longer flaps, this is putting a bit more firmness in your hinge as well, because normally you have your hidden hinge here and about an inch space and then some paper on the top. This way it's going halfway into the book cover, so it's really going to stay nice and sturdy. So that's that first one. I'm going to do the same again on this side. Now I need to put that firm, and that needs to just have time now to dry off before we do the next stage, and I would really suggest that you give it that time to dry off as well. What we could do is, while we're waiting, is I could start attaching my tape for the pages. I've got some red line tape here for my pages. I could use wet glue. If you remember the pages in this one, we're going to put over the top. Now, unlike other projects I do, I normally open it right out, which we can do to an extent, but not fully on this. And in fact, actually, I think my tape might be too wide. Let me just have another. Yes, I think I'm going to go in with my thinner tape. I'm going to use the thinner tape. This one is measuring in at just over 1/4 of an inch. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm not going to take it right the way down to the bottom. I'm just putting it in the top part of the hinge. Now this is because when we actually put our pages in, you're still going to see a piece of this hinge there, and that's why I've not got tape all the way down to the bottom. So I'm just gluing this in the top. So this is just over 1/4 inch, this tape that I'm using. So I'm doing the same on all 4 of these. It's quite sticky, this one. And I can burnish that off to get a good stick onto the paper and trim all the ends off as well, because I'm just tearing them here at the moment. Last one. I'm just going to go in with my scissors and snip these ends off. And the last one there. Now this is still a bit wet, and I really want this to get properly dry, so I'm just going to leave this a minute to dry, and then I'll come back to you and show you how we add it to our book and add our pages.